The glass doors of Meridian Technologies had barely closed behind Maya. Chen when she felt it again, that familiar tightness in her chest. The voice in her head whispering that she didn't belong here. At 23, with ink-stained fingers from her habit of sketching in notebooks and a tendency to stumble over her own words, she was the least likely person to make waves in the gleaming corporate tower that stretched 30 floors into the Seattle skyline. She'd taken the intern position in the marketing department not because she dreamed of corporate success, but because her student loans demanded it. Every morning, she'd slip into her cubicle, keep her head down, and count the hours until she could retreat to her small apartment, where silence was a comfort, not a threat. But on a rainy Tuesday in October, everything changed. Maya would learn that the smallest acts of kindness, done when no one is watching, have a way of echoing far beyond anything we could imagine. She would discover that being seen, truly seen for who you are, can transform not just your own life, but the lives of everyone around you. Maya was hunched over her desk, reviewing social media analytics that blurred together after the third hour, when she noticed the commotion near the reception area. Through the glass partition, she could see a woman standing at the front desk, her hands moving in animated gestures while the receptionist, Jessica, stared with growing frustration. The woman appeared to be in her 60s, wearing a practical navy coat still dotted with raindrops, her face etched with worry lines that deepened with each passing moment. Jessica was speaking slowly and loudly, the way people often do when they mistakenly believe volume can bridge any communication gap. "I need you to sign in," she pointed aggressively at the clipboard. The woman's hands moved faster, more desperately, but Jessica only shook her head, her expression hardening from confusion into irritation. Maya felt something twist in her stomach. She recognized that look on the visitor's face, the isolation, the frustration of being in a room full of people yet completely alone. Her hands had already pushed her chair back before her mind caught up with her body. Every instinct screamed at her to stay in her safe cubicle, to let someone else handle it. Someone more confident, someone who belonged. But her feet carried her forward anyway. Her older brother, Danny, had been born deaf. Growing up, Maya had learned American Sign Language as naturally as she'd learned to tie her shoes. It was the language of bedtime stories, of inside jokes, of arguments and reconciliations. It was the language of home. She'd never thought of it as anything special, just part of who she was, woven into the fabric of her life like her brown eyes or her terrible sense of direction. "Excuse me," Maya said softly as she approached the desk, her voice barely above a whisper. Jessica turned, relief flooding her features. "Can I help?" Before Jessica could respond, Maya turned to the woman and her hands began to move, forming the signs with fluid grace. "Hello, I'm Maya. Can I help you?" The transformation on the woman's face was immediate and profound. Her eyes, which had been tight with frustration and embarrassment, suddenly brightened. Her shoulders dropped from their defensive hunch. Her hands flew into motion, and Maya watched, translated, understood. "My name is Patricia Holbrook," the woman signed, her movements urgent but controlled. "My son works here, James Holbrook, in the engineering department. He was supposed to meet me, but he's not answering his phone. I'm worried something happened. I have a medical appointment across town in 45 minutes, and he was going to give me important insurance documents." Maya's hands moved as she interpreted for Jessica, then turned back to Patricia. "Let me call up to engineering and find out what's happening. Please have a seat. Would you like some water or coffee while you wait?" Patricia's eyes glistened. "You don't know how grateful I am. I've been trying to explain for 10 minutes. I felt invisible." "You're not invisible," Maya signed, offering a genuine smile. "Not anymore." As Maya picked up the phone to call engineering, she didn't notice the man standing near the elevator bank 20 feet away. Nathaniel Morrison, CEO of Meridian Technologies, had been on his way to a board meeting when he'd paused, coffee in hand, transfixed by the scene unfolding at the reception desk. He'd built his company from a 2-person startup to a tech giant worth billions. But in all those years of success, he'd learned that the true measure of an organization wasn't in its profit margins, it was in moments. Exactly like this one, when no one thought the boss was watching. He watched as Maya made the call, as she turned back to Patricia and explained that James was in an emergency meeting but would be down in 10 minutes. He watched as Maya pulled up a chair, sat beside Patricia, and began what appeared to be a genuine conversation, both women's hands dancing in the air. He saw Patricia actually laugh, as Maya's face brightened with delight at whatever had been shared. The awkward, quiet intern from the third floor, the one who always seemed to be trying to disappear, was completely transformed. Confident, warm, alive. Nathaniel glanced at his watch. His board meeting could wait 5 minutes. He needed to see how this played out. When James Holbrook finally rushed into the lobby, his tie askew and panic written across his face, Patricia stood to embrace him. Maya had already slipped back toward her desk, trying to return to invisibility, but James caught her arm. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "My mom told me what you did. I'm so sorry I lost track of time. The meeting ran over. And I didn't hear my phone." He trailed off, overwhelmed. Maya felt her cheeks flush. "It's okay, really. I'm just glad I could help." But Patricia wasn't finished. She approached Maya and took both of her hands, holding them gently. Then she signed something that made Maya's eyes water. "My son tells me about his workplace, about the deadlines and the pressure and the competition. But today you reminded me that kindness still exists here. You gave me my dignity when someone else saw me as a problem to solve. That's rare. That's precious. Don't ever lose that." Maya managed to sign back through her tears. "Thank you for letting me help." After Patricia and James left, Maya returned to her desk, her heart still pounding. She tried to focus on her computer screen, but the numbers and charts swam before her eyes. She'd done something right, something that mattered, and the feeling was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. She didn't hear Nathaniel Morrison approach until his shadow fell across her desk. Maya looked up and her breath caught. The CEO of Meridian Technologies stood before her cubicle. His silver hair immaculate, his tailored suit probably worth more than her car. She scrambled to her feet, nearly knocking over her coffee mug. "Mr. Morrison, I'm sorry. I should have asked permission before I left my desk. I just saw that the woman needed help and—" He held up a hand, stopping her mid-panic. His expression was unreadable. "Maya Chen, is it?" "Yes, sir." "How long have you been with us?" 6 weeks, sir. I'm an intern in marketing." Nathaniel nodded slowly, and Maya felt her stomach drop. She was going to be fired. For abandoning her post. For overstepping. For being the kind of person who couldn't just mind her own business. "I saw what you did just now," Nathaniel said, and Maya's heart sank further. But then his expression softened into something she hadn't expected. A smile, genuine and warm. "That woman, Patricia, is the mother of one of our best engineers. And what you gave her in those 15 minutes wasn't just translation. You gave her respect, dignity. You saw her as a person, not an inconvenience." Maya's voice came out as barely a whisper. "She reminded me of my brother. He's deaf. I know what it's like to watch someone you love be dismissed because communicating with them takes an extra moment of effort." Nathaniel's eyes sparked with something, recognition, perhaps, or understanding. "Can I tell you something, Maya? I've spent 20 years building this company. I've hired the best minds, the most talented people in the industry, but talent without humanity is just noise. What you demonstrated today, that's leadership. That's what I want at the core of this organization." Maya stared at him, certain she'd misunderstood. "I'd like to offer you a position," Nathaniel continued. "Not as an intern, as our new Director of Accessibility and Inclusion. It's a role we should have created years ago. You'd work with every department to ensure that Meridian Technologies is a place where everyone, employees, clients, visitors, feels seen and valued. You'd have a team, a real budget, and my full support." The cubicle walls seemed to spin. "Sir, I don't have any qualifications for something like that. I'm just someone who did the right thing when no one was watching." Nathaniel interrupted gently. "That's the only qualification that matters. Everything else you can learn. But that instinct, that humanity, that can't be taught. Think about it. Talk to your family." "But Maya, I really hope you'll say yes." 3 months later, Maya stood in her new office, a real office, with walls and a door, and a window overlooking the city, reviewing proposals for sign language, interpreters for company events, braille materials for quarterly reports, and sensitivity training for all departments. Her team of 4 gathered around her desk, bouncing ideas off each other, laughing, building something meaningful. James Holbrook had sent her flowers with a note that simply read, "Mom says you're changing the world." She's right. Danny had video called her the night she accepted the position, tears streaming down his face as she signed the news. "You're going to help so many people like me," he'd told her. "I always knew you were extraordinary. Now everyone else gets to see it too." But the moment that meant the most came a week into her new role, when she received an email from Nathaniel Morrison with no subject line. Inside was a single sentence. "Thank you for reminding me what really matters." Maya printed it out and pinned it to her bulletin board, right next to a photo of her and Danny at her college graduation. She looked at it every morning when doubt crept in, when the voice in her head whispered that she didn't belong in this beautiful office with its view and its purpose. Then she'd remember Patricia's face, the way loneliness had transformed into connection. She'd remember that kindness isn't about grand gestures or perfect confidence. Sometimes it's just about seeing another person, really seeing them and choosing to bridge the gap. And she'd remember that the most powerful thing any of us can do is to show up, even when we're afraid, especially when we're afraid, and offer what only we can give. For Maya, that meant using her hands to build bridges, but the lesson was universal. We all have something unique to offer the world. And sometimes the smallest acts of humanity create the biggest ripples of change. Maya Chen had walked into Meridian Technologies as an intern who wanted to disappear. She emerged as a woman who'd learned that being truly seen for your kindness, your compassion, your humanity, wasn't something to fear. It was everything.